I didn't intend for the music to start going all ethereal and spooky. There we go, it's kicked in a bit now. Evening Kev, good to see that you're here. Make sure to chuck your answers to the warm-up question in the chat. We'll get rocking and rolling momentarily, just sorting a few bits quickly. There we go. We will wheel that out. Get rid of a few bits and pieces there. And then we will hit the magic button. Hey! Ooh, blimey, I'm very high up in the air there, aren't I? Let's do that. There we go, that's a bit better. Not sort of seeing me sort of head sort of down here like this. Actually sort of up in the sky a little bit. There we go. Magic, 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 magic. That's what we like, of course. Making sure the links and everything have gone out. The other thing I want to do is make sure that we've got the Elite League bits and pieces on. Because we've got a bit to talk about. Special announcement coming later in the show as well. You have to wait a little bit for that. But there is a bit of a fun announcement coming. So it should be good on that one. Like I said, we'll keep an eye on the Elite League games that are kind of running tonight as well into the bargain. But there we go. Folks starting to make their way in. Just looking at the time. And given that fortunately there isn't any need for anything too somber this evening, it just means we can kind of crack on as we usually do. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday night, it is 8 PM, and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you again to the weird, wonderful and wacky world that is the National Ice Hockey League structure here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division, that is our bread and butter, that is our home port, but of course we are here to go through absolutely anything and everything, all the news, action and the upcoming fixtures from across the NIHL structure. That means the National Division as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Good to be back. Been out of the country and back into the country since I last saw you. Of course, we'll touch on that in a little bit as well. Plenty of news, plenty of stuff going on that we need to talk about into the bargain. But of course, before we really do kick off with everything, a little bit of housekeeping, of course, that we do need to take care of. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. And of course, you can follow me this year on my weird and wonderful hockey journey in our Banners on the Road series, where Banners on the Wall as a website started off covering the Basingstoke Bison. And unfortunately now with the Bison lost in the mists of time for the foreseeable future, I've been on my journey across, British hockey, and now I've ventured across the seas. Was at last week's game in Berlin. Excuse me, in the Regionalliga Ost playoffs between FAS Berlin and ESC Dresden, the Ice Löwen Juniors. Game one of their 3-game playoff series that I was at. The write-up from that one and a bit of a, giving you some sort of like insight and taking you on a little bit of a journey that I went through this past weekend over on the website bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, as well as our you've got a lot of great stuff on there, like our Hockey Story series, long-form, in-depth pieces, both in the written form and in the audio form. The most recent one that's up there, of course, our interview with Tom Norton, Peterborough Phantoms defenseman, celebrating his testimonial for all too long. Some great names coming out for that testimonial, but if you want a bit more insight into Tom's career, head over to the website. You can have a check of that out there. I'll say this now, got one in the pipeline. I'm waiting back for something because I've had to give somebody right a reply. So we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, there's one in the pipeline at the moment. I'm just waiting for some stuff to come before I can put that one out. But Hockey Stories is there. Banners on the Road is there. Bunch of stuff that you can check out from the past. Nearly 13 years worth of content. We're officially into the birthday month for Banners on the Wall, but 13 years worth of stuff over on the website bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. And of course, the other bit is we are live here on YouTube Wednesday nights. If you're new, thanks for joining the party. If you're back for another go around, we love to have you here as always. But Wednesday nights, 8 PM here on YouTube throughout the British hockey season, to go through all the mad machinations of the NIHL structure. If you haven't already, please do all the usual bits. Let's feed the algorithm hamster, keep him fat and well fed down there. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. tick the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video. You know how all these bits and pieces work. You've all been on YouTube long enough. And as well, you can head down into the description of the video, all the links to our socials, Facebook, Twitter, and as well as our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. If you like what you see, put some money in the hat, just keep things rocking and rolling along. And the other great thing, of course, is because we're live and this is YouTube, that means you get the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to kind of chuck in. This isn't a monologue of a show. More than happy to kind of have folk chucking their tuppence worth into the system. It's always great to have people sort of comment. Got a great little community of stuff kind of going here. Maybe not the biggest, but certainly one of the best on YouTube, I personally think. But if you are using the chat, please, of course, do remember the golden rule here at BOTW, and that is DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we are all going to have a jolly good time. Swig of water. And on to bits and pieces. Andrew's been kind enough to chuck the Elite League scores into the chat there at the end of the first in Nottingham. And the Panthers, who are on a bit of an upswing now, they seem to have gotten, obviously a very tough year to be a Nottingham Panther, but they do seem to be getting themselves into a really good space at the moment. Anthony Luciani and Dedrick Henbrandt with the goals. They lead the Guildford Flames by 2-0. 0-0 in Coventry is my understanding. That, of course, a big game in Coventry tonight. The first game back for the Blaze at home since the passing of Dayle, their assistant coach. I said earlier, love and light to all in Coventry, because tonight is, it was tough in Belfast. It's going to be a very tough night tonight as well, obviously, for obvious reasons. So just, sending all of our good thoughts to everybody. I did speak to Stu Coles today from the Coventry Blaze webcast team about a bunch of things, actually, but this was also one of the things, because, they're not... it's going to be a tough night, but I know certainly from a stream perspective, Ed and Stu together as a combination are two of the best in the country. They are going to do everybody very, very proud, for absolutely certain. There is no doubt about it. So, before we kick on too far, just because it doesn't play into anything else, let's get my trip out of the way. And like I said, over on the website, over on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, you've got the write-up, the latest Banners on the Road from my little excursion that I took over to Germany. So for those of you who weren't familiar, I won a trip through a company that does sort of mystery football holidays. So the idea being they sort out your flights, they sort out your accommodation, they sort out tickets to games, and you can pay a price for a package. And I ended up winning a prize off a competition on Twitter. Now, what the useful thing about this was, when eventually I found out where I was going and realising I was going back to Berlin, a place that I quite like, not where I used to live in Germany, but close enough. But we had, what essentially it ended up with was, and having spoken to the guy who runs the company, what they'd originally wanted to do was send me to one game on Saturday afternoon, but they couldn't get me tickets for it. So I ended up with two games, one on Friday night and one on early Saturday afternoon. So I was in the Olympic Stadium in Berlin for Hertha Berlin and Holstein Kiel, which was an amazing experience. And then on Saturday I was in Babelsberg, which is in Potsdam, just outside of Berlin, for Babelsberg versus Dynamo Berlin. Fantastic experience there. Two very, very different footballing experiences for sure. But having had so much time around it to kind of do whatever I wanted, I was flying back out on Sunday morning. It meant I was able to kind of smash a bunch of other stuff in, a few cultural bits, getting some food, getting some beers in. But the other thing I actually also managed to do was to find some hockey, which was the fourth division, the Regionalliga Ost playoffs, so the regional league for the East in Tier 4 of German hockey. Got the first game of the playoff series, their quarterfinal series at all three games. FAS won the regular season, so we got first versus eighth. Pretty fun game, all in all. 14 goals for €9 is not a terrible thing, but FAS were just a class above. I took quite a few photographs. Those are on the piece as well, so do go check those out. But yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I know Andrew Day's in the chat, and he likes going over to Sweden and stuff like that. If you get the opportunity, go watch hockey abroad. Like, I know obviously like money is a thing and money is an issue for people, and if you can't afford it, I'm not saying you should put yourself into debt to go watch hockey. You shouldn't go put yourself into debt to go watch hockey here, but if you get the opportunity, do go abroad, experience a different hockey culture, experience a different hockey feeling, as to what it is and that sort of thing. Like, I think it's just great to be able to see and do it and see how it happens in a different place. Because it's so easy sometimes to just get kind of wrapped up in our own thing and think there's nothing kind of outside of it. And like, boy, is that an attitude that I just can't abide. Like, I love the idea that we're able to kind of see the thing we love in a slightly different way. And if nothing else, Fast Berlin, like freshly made waffles, freshly made crepes that you could get there, like literally like pouring the batter into the thing in front of your face. There is no better than that, which is why I've been on this kick this week of asking people about what their favourite food from a rink is, because it should be said, that was pretty high. That was very, very high up in the thing. The thing that comes closest for me, I don't know about, I don't know if any of you have ever been, but I've been to the rink in Amsterdam and saw a game in Amsterdam, and they did like a sort of a fricadella style sausage that was one of the best things I've ever eaten in a nice rink, and it was amazing. So yeah, if you get the opportunity, get out of Britain and try watching hockey in some different places. North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, they play Australia. Definitely try out Australia if you can. But yeah, tons and tons of fun stuff. Had a really, really great weekend, and of course it meant I had to keep a tab on stuff from a distance. So we probably need to talk about one of the bigger things that's come out of the last weekend, which is the injury to Duncan Spears of the Peterborough Phantoms, who's obviously, as we're aware, taken quite a nasty knock in a collision as a result of a check from Ross Venus of the MK Lightning. That obviously came from Friday, came from the game on Friday between the two sides, which the Lightning won. And people might have seen, I slightly got into it on Twitter with somebody who said something I thought was a little bit beyond the pale. And I think it's probably, I'm just going to take a moment here just to kind of articulate some thoughts on this a bit better, because I know we have Peterborough folk who watch, I know we've got MK folk who watch as well. The incident has obviously occurred because Venus has taken a hit from Spears, and then Venus has gone and given him a retaliatory hit. Spears has landed badly, and from what we understand, multiple breaks of the leg. Not a good hit at all. Certainly not an outcome that anybody would wish for. And I got into it with somebody on through my social media who, for some reason, I don't know how I got tagged in the tweet, but I think it's probably because I'd retweeted Venus's sort of apology tweet that he stuck out, where he'd put on like the wrong Twitter account, which didn't help either. But they'd accused Ross Venus of trying to hurt Duncan Spears on purpose. And I have a problem with that for a multitude of reasons. One, because by that logic, every hit is an intent to hurt somebody. Because ultimately, the physical element of hockey, the sport that we all love, is what it is. Hitting somebody is a message that I'm trying to remove you from the play, or that I'm trying to physically intimidate you into not doing what you want to do. The other thing as well is that whilst his apology publicly was not the best handled, and I think Ross Venus needs to probably have a think about how he approaches such things going forward, whilst it wasn't the best, to accuse somebody of going into a hit to deliberately injure them to the point where they are unable to work after the game, or to potentially end his career, because that bad leg break could end a career. To accuse somebody of that is relatively serious. And I think it's something that, whatever you think of Ross Venus, unless you're a police detective or live inside his brain, I don't think you should accuse people of doing that. I don't like it. Now, that was that person's opinion, and that's fine, but I will die on the hill of calling out a really bad take when I see it. The most important part out of all of this is that Duncan Spears is doing all right. From having spoken to some folk within the Phantoms today, that he's doing as well as can be expected, and he's got a really good attitude about the next steps and everything like that, and he's doing all right, which is the most important part out of this ultimately. And I think probably my problem is I need to stop trying to have arguments with an element of nuance to it on social media. That's my learning out of this. But certainly, having spoken, people have not, some, for whatever reason, this person said something that I thought was really, really daft, and I called them out on it, and because I felt that was the point of dying on the hill. Now, they vehemently disagreed with me, and they seem to be able to feel that they can tell that the intent was there to injure from one player to injure another player. Now, I don't think that's impossible to tell. And it's really, really hard to say that. In some circumstances, it is. If we think back to the Pickering of Chelmsford getting suspended because he took a run at that lad from Milton Keynes and smacked him in the face. Well, that's not a hockey play gone wrong. As bad as the hit from Venus was, that's a hockey play gone wrong. And I think that there is a marked difference between a deliberate, intentional action to intimidate, be an aggressor, to hurt or injure, and what happened here. Because, yeah, it's a bad hit. And Ross Venus should 100% be suspended for it. But that is not mutually exclusive to the fact that he tried to end a man's career or tried to break his leg. And I think that's the problem there. But that's where I think certainly we've got the option here of being able to have that conversation here. I can see, Kev, who's in the chat, is a Peterborough fan. Awful hit in my opinion. Yeah, it's not a good hit at all. And I think there's no other way. There's no way to kind of sidle away from that. And Jamie, who's an MK fan, do we need to get the intent to injure out of the rule book? It's a very grey area, but the rule book needs changing and redraft 100%. I actually disagree, Jamie. I really do disagree with that, because the entire application is subjective because you're asking a person to apply the rules. Referees, for the variety of discussion that we can have about them, and I know it's obviously been a very big topic in a lot of places this year, like the entire rule book is applied subjectively. Now I say that, the referee's not on anybody's side, they're on their own. But it's their application from their knowledge of the rules and their sight of the incident. And so an intent to injure is a very tough thing to call. But there has to be an escalation level, because there is a difference between a bad hit and somebody intentionally doing something to break somebody's leg. Not to use a very extreme example, Donald Brashear and what happened to him from Marty McSorley, where McSorley cracks his stick around the head of Donald Brashear. That's not hockey play. There's very clear intent to hit the man with the stick, using the stick as a weapon. I think we could say that there is an intent to injure. He's not hitting him hard into the boards to take him off the puck. Away from the play, and hit, took a whack at him. That's a different thing. I was in Basingstoke with a hit from, I can't remember the Tigers player off the top of my head, but I was there for the hit that originally where Aidan Doughty broke his back. It was a clean hit, and it was a hockey play gone wrong. You can't, there is a very marked difference. And yes, it's a grey area. I don't disagree with that element. But the idea that we need to completely redraft the rulebook when actually we're asking everybody to act using their own judgment, that's subjective. We can't rule that element of this sport out, unfortunately. With that, in the Telford fight, Doc's going to be busy. Shout out Aidan Wilson. That's just some poor decision making, wasn't it? Of whacking Dan Crow in the chest and then running away. Not his best move, and eventually that's probably going to get him chirped for quite some time. Thought some of the fans were bang out of order, which why I defended Venus in the tweet I put out. And I mean, I think to a point that's why I did as well. Because like I say, Jamie, I got tagged in something and it was just beyond the pale. It was really silly, and I think actually. And let me say this as well. It's not representative of all Peterborough Phantoms fans by any stretch of the imagination. Now, they can hold that view that was an intent to win, that was an intent to injure. That's cool. But tweeting at a guy in something that he's going to read saying, "You've lied and you definitely tried to hurt him," crossed the line for me personally. Now, should I have had that argument with that person? You can argue the toss either way. Maybe not. But I think probably people who watch me on a regular basis know that maybe there are some times where I should keep my mouth shut, but I don't. And that was probably, that might go down as one of them. But I really, really do disagree with that. Bad hit. Venus is 100% going to be suspended. High chance he could miss the cup final as a result of it. but it remains to be seen. I don't think Lightning fans or Peterborough fans will be happy. One set of people is going to be really, really upset, I think, when this suspension comes out. Because if it's a Tier 2 or a Tier 3, MK fans are going to be frothing at the mouth. If it's only a Tier 1, I think Peterborough fans will be a bit upset given the extent of the injury to it. Excuse me, but yeah, ultimately there's no winners here. Duncan Spears is out for a really long time. Ross Venus, who's been one of the best players in the division, isn't going to play. He might miss the rest of the season potentially as a result. There are no winners. It's about 12 feet from my seat. Bad hit, yes, but intent to injury, no. The Hewitt slash on Bowering the week before was intent. Yeah, and that was one of the ones as well, having looked back at the game tape, where they'd sort of been whacking away at each other all night, and sort of Hewitt kind of went to the nth degree. But yeah, there was certainly an intent to slash him very hard. But again, did he intend to break his hand? Maybe. That's where we're into Jamie's grey area that he's talked about there, I think. Matt Cook hitting Savard, textbook intent to injury. Yeah, that's a really, really good example there, Rod. Thanks for chiming in. I trust all is well on your side of the pond. But yeah, that's certainly the biggest bit of news across the NHL. We of course will wait for DOP's assessment. It's Wednesday night tonight. Usually clubs will be informed on Thursday of any suspensions, but there are, as we know, it's not always straightforward. With these kind of things, we await to kind of see what happens. Of course, the other big news, a lot of big news coming out of Leeds. Of course, Ryan Aldrich, the double winning coach of last year, probably going to be the league winning coach this year. That has re-signed for 3 years as the coach of the Leeds Knights. Steve Nell continues to put his faith in Ryan Aldrich, and why not? I think it was something like over an 80% win percentage as coach of the Knights. For Aldrich, double last year. They're definitely, they are going to win the league this year. I don't think, unless they have the absolute collapse of all collapses, it's going back to Leeds. So a massive, a lot of absolutely zero reason why Steve Nell wouldn't want Ryan Aldrich to stay. And also as well, from an Aldrich perspective, there's something to be said about the project that needs to continue there in Leeds, because of course the ice hockey in Leeds is still very, very young, and Ryan Aldrich has a potential here to really cement his legacy. Now, a lot of people will wonder about Aldrich's coaching future because, is he worthy of an elite league shot? Will be the question. And I think there's obviously people will remember back to his time at the Bison in the elite league in the early 2000s, and that was obviously scuppered by the fact that we had no money. But the one thing Ryan Aldrich has gone and done in that time period, you think, we're sort of, 15, 16 years removed from that time in Basingstoke in the Elite League as a coach, but Aldrich became a really, really good coach of young players. And actually that's one of the things where I wonder, will he ever step into the Elite League as a result? Because he will want to, he's better coaching younger guys, I think is probably the fairest thing to say. And what club, given where he is, will allow him to kind of have that sort of freedom to build that roster in the way he wants to? Leeds, he effectively has the complete control to do whatever he wants on that front. And some people say, are Leeds going to go to the Elite League? Well, that's not a given, so we don't know. But Aldrich is a very good coach at this level, and ultimately Leeds have locked up a guy who, whether you necessarily think he's coach of the year, I'll leave that down to you. Certainly this season, I think there are guys who've been able to achieve quite a lot with very little or even less. I think Aldrich has to be in contention for coach of the year because of the absolute domination job that Leeds have done. There are others in there. I think Aaron Nell needs to be in the conversation for coach of the year, given what he's been able to do with the Wildcats this season. I think Matty Davies has to be in the conversation for coach of the year, given how improved Hull have been. There's a bunch of, and certainly those are my sort of immediate top three. Lightning fans some Lightning fans may want me to put Tim Wallace in there, but I mean, show me you can win the big one, Tim, and we'll probably have a discussion about that. But yeah, it's a it's a no-brainer, and that of course is coupled with the fact from Leeds that Kieran Brown now stands alone, the first player in the sort of the modern era of British hockey coming back from the EPL into the sort of current era of the national division as the second tier of British hockey. The first player to have 3 back-to-back 100-point seasons, as if we didn't know that Kieran Brown was special enough already. He now stands alone, having surpassed some very, very big numbers of people like Carl Amiot, of people like Michael Pinch. A lot kind of going on there. But as we, in a really shocking turn of events, sky is blue, water is wet. Kieran Brown's relatively good at ice hockey, and we probably don't need to kind of worry ourselves too much about that. If the Bees get to the playoffs, Dom Gabai has to be on that list. I would be okay with him being in the conversation. I don't necessarily think he would win it, only because I think the Bees have been so heavily reliant on the top line, which has usually been him, Marcel Balach, and one other, and Britton Priest doing his level best at the back end, that I think it's a tough ask for Dom to win it. If the Bees make the playoffs, I'm entirely sympathetic to the discussion. Apologies, folks. Bit stuffed up, it seems. It's the joy of being on planes, of course. They are, you get everybody else's germs, and you get massively dehydrated into the bargain. But yeah, a fair few kind of bits kind of going on there. And certainly, Leeds, another very, very good year for them. Kieran, a lot of people will talk about getting him into the GB squad for Worlds. He was injured last year when Worlds came around, which is why he ended up not making the final roster. But it's there's, I have to think the conversation has to be being held again, and that one will rumble on for a while, I think. Either way, the one thing we should probably do is talk about the national division and the actual results and bits and pieces that we've had from last weekend. Now, as we go along, do remember, questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, chuck everything into the chat by all means. And we will sort of rumble along with things as we go. As we look at the results from last weekend in the National Division. Of course, we talked about it from last Friday. We talked about the controversy in the game, but ultimately the MK Lightning with two very, very important points in that 4-1 win in Peterborough over the Phantoms. And it ended up being a 4-point weekend for the Lightning the following night, as we see them beating Peterborough in a big derby game, and then a 3-0 win for the Lightning at home against the Telford Tigers, which is obviously big given the fact that Leeds are still very, very much in command. Elsewhere on Saturday, the Puppy Bowl towards the bottom end of the table, and 2 points for the Bristol Pitbulls as they look to avoid the wooden spoon, but with a 5-4 overtime win for them over the Sheffield Steel Dogs. Obviously, some less good news from the Bristol Pitbulls over the last couple of days, given the fact that they've obviously lost their import in that Brennan Feasy has gone home. Max Mabraya back in the roster for them, but a good response there from the Pitbulls to get some points in that one. A Saturday as well then, a 10 spot for the Seahawks. The Raiders with the long travel day, not quite going according to plan there, but a big win for Matty Davis' side as they look to make sure they stay in good form ahead of the Cup final in 2 weeks' time as they put 10 past the Raiders. Elsewhere on Saturday, the Solway Sharks looking to stay in the playoff hunt. The results definitely do not go their way. Whilst the Raiders lose, they lose 5-2 to the Knights, and the Bees squeak out a win in the shootout against the Swindon Wildcats. Marcel Balach with the ultimate winner. Gail Lebuele, former teammate, of course, former line mate at times last year in Basingstoke, hits the post, and the Bees take 2 points out of Swindon. And then the Bees getting themselves in an even better position with that 4-3 win. Obviously a tight win over Bristol, one that they needed, but one that is pushing them further and further towards playoff contention, especially as well when you consider that Solway losing by 7-3 down in Romford against the Raiders there. The Sharks still on the outside looking in. It's starting to look a bit bleak. The Sharks need to pick up some form and pick up some wins if they're going to want to get themselves towards their first ever postseason at the Tier 2 level. Bad night for Peterborough though. They lose by 7-1 against the Hull Seahawks. I know Kevin said, can we skip it? The answer is no. We do have to talk about it, unfortunately. Not a good weekend at all for Peterborough, all things considered. Telford putting 10 goals past Steel Dogs, of course, in a very tempestuous game in which one Aidan Wilson will probably wish didn't happen, but video and the internet is forever. And then the Nell Classico at the Castle, and defence goes flying straight out the window in this one. But ultimately, because it's Leeds win, and it's a 9-7 victory for the Knights against the Wildcats as the Knights march back to retaining their National Division title goes on. An ultimately crazy game at the Castle. The highlights for that one should be pretty impressive. Either way, the fixtures this upcoming weekend, and thanks of course to our to the boy Max Van Mullen for knocking the graphics together for this one. Friday night lights at the Link Centre as the Nell Classico is tipped on its head. Hopefully there'll be some better defending in this one as the Swindon Wildcats take on the Leeds Knights at the Link Centre. Saturday then, the 9th of March, a nice full docket's worth of games. The Yorkshire Derby on Saturday evening at the Castle as the Leeds Knights take on the Hull Seahawks to get a bit of measure of revenge after the Seahawks knocked the league leaders out of the cup at the semi-final stage. MK take on the Bees in a game that the Lightning will hope they can certainly win. The Solway Sharks take on the Peterborough Phantoms. Neither side with a good weekend last weekend, so somebody's going to get some points on the board after that one. The Battle of the Southwest on Saturday in Swindon as well as the Wildcats take on the Bristol Pitbulls. Will the Southwest be red? Will it be blue? We will find out by the end of Saturday. And then the Telford Tigers take on the Raiders in Shropshire. On to Sunday then, in that case, and it's a home weekend for the Lightning. They'll be hoping for maximum points here. The Bees taking on MK in Slough. Hull welcome Leeds for the second half of that Yorkshire Derby to the world's most versatile arena. Peterborough take on Solway, and then in a massive game with some big playoff contentions, and certainly if Bristol want to avoid that wooden spoon, they travel across to Romford to take on the Raiders, and then it's Dogs and Cats. Hopefully having less fighting than last weekend, the Sheffield Steel Dogs and the Telford Tigers will renew acquaintances at Ice Sheffield on Sunday. That means that we can have a look at the National Division table, and thanks of course to Joe Scutts at NIHLstats.wordpress.com for all of the bits and pieces that get put together here. But we can see that we have another team qualified for the playoffs. The Hull Seahawks are officially into the postseason, having missed out last year. Massive congratulations to Matty Davies and his boys for that one ahead of their cup final exploits with MK. But the Knights are still very much in control. 79 points from 45 games. They lead MK by 8 points with a game in hand. That magic number is creeping ever closer as we can see. MK's maximum points is 87, meaning that the Knights are a couple of weekends away if they can win it out from retaining their National Division title. Swindon in third place, 63 from 45, are pretty locked in where they are. Hull and then qualify for the playoffs for the first time, 57 from 46. On the outside looking in, it's a little bit tighter around there. Peterborough will probably be fine where they are in fifth, 51 points from 46. Telford 45 from 46, and then, well, like I say, it's starting to look a little bit bleaker for the Solway Sharks. Raiders and Bees tied on 41 from 45. The Sharks 37 from 46. They're starting to get into the territory of other teams needing to do business for them. Could be a tough one for Martin Grubb's boys, but they are at least there and they're still fighting away. And then towards the bottom, the Steel Dogs 30 points from 46 and Bristol 24 from 46. It's going to be a tough ask for the Pitbulls to not get the wooden spoon, but you know, they've had an okay weekend. They've started to pick up results a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but obviously the loss of Brendan Feasy is going to be a bit of a tough one there. Just looking at some as we'll skip out of that one, I can see James put a few bits. Good evening, Niall. Thank you for joining us, of course. Hopefully very happy about the Seahawks being in the playoffs. Lightning win the League Series 6 and over the Phantoms for the first time since 15-16. We like 15-16, a very good year. 2,392 people in MK on Saturday night. Around 500 on the ice after the game for skate with the players. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty fun. 500 people on the ice, that feels like that must have been a bit crowded. You can't really skate when there's that many people. On the ice, it should be said. Guildford are now 3-0 up on the Guildford. Nottingham are 3-0 up on Guildford. Now another goal from Anthony Luciani in that one. But yeah, thoughts, feelings. How are we kind of feeling about that? Like I say, mostly just because, like I say, it does feel like Leeds are on. We're just on sort of the inevitable march now towards another title for the Leeds Knights. But they're definitely. It's definitely, going to be fun. Definitely going to be fun to watch, because you never know. You just never know. And nothing else. Like I said, 2 weeks tonight, the first leg of the NHL National Division Cup final between the Seahawks and the MK Lightning at Hull. Wednesday night, do we need to think maybe about sidecasting that one? For those of us who aren't going to be there, might be an interesting idea. I might speak to our folk in Hull. So that might be an idea. Excuse me. Yes, definitely some interesting bits and pieces kind of going on in the National Division that front. Just checking that I was going to say there was some news there from our regarding sort of Basingstoke bits and pieces. It's an interesting one, that one, certainly. And a Basingstoke, from a Basingstoke perspective, I think we're all pretty set on the idea. The Basingstoke Bison will not ice in the National Division season for 24-25. I need to I've got my head and my heart around that now. But the motion in Basingstoke Council to investigate the circumstances surrounding the issues with the rink has been taken up, so it's now going to be into committee stage. Some bits and pieces coming out of that, hopefully, before too long. Just double checking that that's been written there. It's fine. There we go. No extra news there. There was a few bits and pieces flashing up. Either way, let's get back to having a look at some bits and pieces, and we head to our friends in the north, into North 1, and a relatively busy weekend, all things considered. But league action across the board. Not much happening on Saturday. Just the one game. The Blackburn Hawks, fresh off their League Cup win over Billingham, with a massive win over Widnes, 10-3 there. And the Stars are starting to not shine quite as bright. They lose by 7-4 at home against Deeside. A massive win for the Dragons. And that little gap of light is starting to shine in for people like Solihull and Blackburn. However, Solihull don't do themselves any favours. They travel all the way up to Whitley and lose by 6-2 against the Warriors. Hull actually win on the road for once. You can make all the jokes about the fact it was in Nottingham. That's not the point. It was a very tight, very closely fought game, which you can go back and watch on the Lions YouTube channel, as you should watch all of their games live on the YouTube channel, because it's free hockey and that's the best kind. But either way, Hull win on the road. Wonders never cease on that front. And the Hawks with a 4-point weekend as they return the favour in Widnes against the Wild, and a 7-3 victory for Dominic Osman's team. Which means we then look ahead to this weekend. Yes, there is a game in the M56 Cup. Make your own jokes, given the Hawks have already won it, but the D-side will take on Blackburn at some point on Saturday. Elsewhere on Saturday in North 1, a 4:40pm face-off at Ice Sheffield for the Scimitars and the Billingham Stars. The Stars still within touching distance of the title, but they do need to start getting some better form against the bottom place side. That could be a good way to do that. Elsewhere on Saturday at the world's most versatile arena, having been in Nottingham last week, the Hull Jets and the Nottingham Lions will renew acquaintances on the banks of the Humber. On Sunday then, Billingham versus Hull at the Forum is a 5:30 face-off. Blackburn take on Sheffield in Lancashire. Deeside take on Whitley in what should be a very good game there. And Solihull welcome the Nottingham Lions to Hobbs-Moat Road. What that means then for the Northern table, like we said, it's been this way for a while. 6 teams already qualified for the playoffs, and it's now just a case of who between Widnes, Nottingham and Sheffield will miss out. Billingham, though, still top of the table. They are still not too far away, and that loss for Solihull puts the magic number at 47 points. The Stars need 3 points from this upcoming. Need 3 points to get themselves over the line. 2 wins, and Billingham should be champions of North 1, despite the fact that it feels like they've tripped over their own feet to get there at some point. But with Solihull and Blackburn only able to reach a maximum of 46, a 4-point weekend for Billingham would see them crowned champions of North 1. Down there at the bottom, though, obviously there's quite a gap between Hull in 6th and Widnes in 7th, though before we are starting to edge towards the point where Widnes will qualify themselves for a playoff spot as a result. Into the south then, and well, it was fun enough on Saturday evening. With a few bits and pieces. League action over in Romford. Of course, the league title already wrapped up in South 1. The champions, the Streatham Redhawks, heading across to Essex and come out with the 6-3 win to continue stomping their dominance on the division with a good solid win ahead of what they needed on Sunday. And then, well, results go Streatham's way. The Slough Jets win by 4-3 in the Britain Cup, this sort of the extra cup competition they've had in South 1. But Slough's win set everything up very nicely for Streatham on Sunday. Chelmsford recovered quite nicely from their defeat on Saturday evening by giving MK an absolute thumping by 12-1 at the Riverside. And then all Streatham needed to do was avoid defeat against the Oxford City Stars to claim the Britain Cup. They do so by giving the Stars another whacking. 10-1 the final score for Streatham there, meaning the Redhawks pick up their 3rd trophy in 3 weekends, which is absolutely balmy numbers, all things considered. And it's pretty crazy to think, they're never going to have that kind of a big run again. Probably they're at least going to have to wait until the playoffs start. So that's at least a good couple of weeks before that happens. But what a season so far from Ben Painter's side. Obviously announcing that Terry England, their sort of assistant bench coach, has kind of stepped away from bits and pieces and has parted ways with the club. There were some interesting tweets and bits and pieces that came out about that. Obviously, maybe things not being quite as harmonious as a split as we've potentially seen, but either way, it doesn't seem to be derailing Streatham at the moment. It should be said they have very much done the business by winning the league, by winning the South 1 Cup, which involved all the teams in this extra competition, the Britain Cup, that had 5 of the teams that they contested to bulk out their fixture list a little bit. And then again for Slough, so near and yet so far. What does Lucas Smittle have up his sleeves for the playoffs? Either way, this upcoming weekend, plenty of action going on in South 1. 5:15 PM face-off over at Sapphire Ice and Leisure for the Romford Buccaneers and Invicta Dynamos. Should be a fun game. Down in Gosport, 5 PM for the Solent Devils and the Oxford City Stars. And then more fun back on the high road. League action, and ultimately one that can't affect the overall result, but momentum and pride heading into the playoffs as the Red Hawks take on the Chelmsford Chieftains. Sunday, 5:45 down in Kent for the Invicta Dynamos and the Chelmsford Chieftains. That's always a great encounter. 6:45 at the Thunderdome for the MK Thunder and the Solent Devils. And then what is officially, again, Britain Cup action, despite the cup already being won. The Oxford City Stars welcome Streatham to Oxpens at 6:15. And like I said, as we already know, the Streatham Redhawks are champions of the NIHL Division 1 South. They cannot be caught. Slough have already completed all of their fixtures. Chelmsford should be locked into 3rd because Slough, I do believe, have the tiebreaker over that one. Solent then in 4th are edging their way towards a playoff series against Invicta. Both teams on 29, but the Devils have played 1 game less. Romford are pretty much going to be locked into 6th. They will be staring down a local rivalry for their playoff encounter, given that they should take on 3rd. Oxford in 7th. And MK down the bottom in 4th, which means at the moment, certainly the playoffs are relatively easy to work out. In North 1, things could still shake up a little bit, but in South 1, it looks like everybody's pretty much going to be locked into where they are. Streatham will take on Milton Keynes, Slough would take on Oxford, Chelmsford versus Romford, Solent versus Invicta. Those Solent and Invicta, of course, met in the very controversial semi-final in South 1 last year that saw Yuri Huska banned for 2 years for angrily throwing his stick that landed over the boards and injured a child. But those two sides over 2 legs could be very, very tasty. Slough versus Chelmsford is tied. Apologies, Joe. I was under the impression that Slough had the tiebreaker, but you are the authority on such things. Romford are locked into 6th. Yes, so yeah, they will either Slough or Chelmsford either way. I'm interested, actually. And Joe, maybe you can give me your opinion on this one. And I'm interested for other people who keep tabs. Romford have had a much better year than I think I predicted they were going to have. If you're Romford, and like I say, Joe, chuck me in your thoughts on this. Who do you think's the better draw for Romford? Are they better off against Chelmsford or better off against Slough, do you think? In terms of having a chance to make it through. I actually think Chelmsford is the better draw for Romford, in my personal opinion. But I'm interested to hear what other people think. Yeah, fair enough, Joe. Thank you very much. Like I say, I was in my head. They, in my head that Slough were ahead on the tiebreaker, but I think potentially I'm thinking too hard onto the. I've put some of the Britain Cup games in by mistake into my brain on that one, and just like that. All the more stupid, of course, folks, was because I messaged Joe before the show, so I had a maths flub about one of the other divisions, and I was actually right for once, and then I managed to get something else wrong in the show. A big thanks to Joe for, as always, for popping up and giving us the lowdown on such things. Chelmsford would be better in my opinion. I'm actually inclined to agree. I think that Chelmsford would be a better draw for Romford in that one. Either way, into North 2, and like I said, we have our second divisional winner locked in and confirmed. The Telford Tigers 6-2 win over the Sutton Sting means that the North 2 title returns back to Shropshire. Congratulations to everybody from Tigers 2. Obviously, I mean, commiserations, of course, to Sutton as well. What an absolute battle they put up this year. They came so close in the Cup to end up losing in overtime. They had the opportunity to deny them on the night and couldn't do it. The Sting's attention will turn to the playoffs. And like I said, there's a couple of weeks ago, the Sutton Sting said to me they were going to make life as difficult as possible as they could for Telford. They definitely have kept their part of the bargain on that front. And I have to say, I am impressed with the heart of the Sutton Sting, even if results are not necessarily going their way. But fair play to them, and fair play to the champions of Division 2 North, the Telford Tigers 2. Elsewhere on Saturday, just the one other game, Coventry, who are obviously gunning for third place, a 7-1 win for them over the Bradford Bulldogs. On Sunday, well, a big win for the Kingston Sharks. They look to make sure that they locked in for that playoff spot for the first time in their first ever season. A 2-1 overtime win for the Sharks away in Manchester against the Altrincham Aces. A 0-point weekend though for the Bulldogs. They lose by 3-2 at home against the Billingham Buccaneers. Really solid season for the Buccaneers, of course, who after their big issues have really done well about keeping their noses clean and their powder dry. Of course, you know, that string of games that they didn't finish for a variety of reasons, and the club apologising for their behaviour at one point as well, really have managed to put their heads down and turn some things around. And then the Tigers, well, the Tigers are, I use the word about Leeds a lot, but they are certainly Tigers 2 are as well. They are relentless, avenging their defeat against the Coventry Blaze, and they do it in the Sky Dome by a scoreline of 3-2. That leads us on to this weekend. The Billingham Buccaneers taking on the Nottingham Lions at the Forum on Saturday night at 7:30. And a 7:40pm face-off at Ice Sheffield for the Sheffield Titans and the Sutton Sting. Pretty full docket on Sunday. 12:30pm face-off in Hull, as they like to do. That nice early face-off, so everyone can have Sunday lunch afterwards at the Whittington and Cat. The Kingston Sharks take on the Sheffield Titans. 7:20pm at the National Ice Centre. The Nottingham Lions against the Bradford Bulldogs. I believe that will probably be streamed out with no commentary on the Lions YouTube page. 4:40pm at Ice Sheffield. Sutton versus Billingham. That could be a really good game. And then 6pm on Sunday in Shropshire. The champions take to the ice again as they look to celebrate in style by taking on the Altrincham Aces. Well, that means, of course, there is the table locked in and confirmed. The Tigers take the title for 2023-24. The Sutton Sting are there in second and only need 2 points to confirm themselves locked into second spot ahead of the playoffs. Coventry in third with 41 points, followed by Billingham, Sheffield, Altrincham and Bradford. Those are the sides locked in for the playoffs. Now, Kingston are on the brink. If Nottingham lose on Saturday night and Kingston manage to get anything as of Sunday, that should technically put them over the line on that front. But it looks pretty much a lock-in that the Kingston Sharks, at the first time of asking, will make the playoffs. They will, of course, have to stare down a two-legged tie against the Telford Tigers. Should be fun on that one. Just here, Joe's put something in the chat. Slough, you think it's the better one. Beat them last year, capable of shutting that team down over 2 games. Sonny turns up and it's game over. Capson Hill could outmatch Good Child in the Moors. Interesting stuff. Certainly, if Sonny Phillips is on his game, that could really do some damage there. Because Sonny at that level is capable of stealing a game. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about that one. I think my worry with Slough is Slough are much more consistent in how they play than Chelmsford. Chelmsford feel like they sort of kind of Chelmsford have got such a high quality team that they kind of feel like they switch on and switch off much more, which I felt like a focused Romford side would be better at doing. But yeah, a Nottingham loss confirms Kingston. Because of the tie break. Yeah, there we go. That would make sense. But yes, good for Kingston. We like that. We like that a lot. Into South 2 then. And obviously the title race very close at hand there. Plenty of stuff going on. But the two heavy hitters both win last Saturday. Haringey with a 5-2 win over the Oxford Rising Stars at Alexandra Palace. But Guildford's 4-2 win in Kent against the Mustangs keeps them in the driving seat. The other one there on Saturday that you'll notice though, a win for the Solent Junior Devils. And we know that side have been hanging around the cusp of the playoffs. But a big 7-1 win against Streatham. Then as well with the second home game of the weekend for the Junior Devils. And a 7-1 win against Chelmsford. Really has the Devils in a really good position heading towards the playoffs now, where they are points ahead, games in hand of the teams below them. Elsewhere in South 2 then from Sunday, well, Haringey had a massive game down in Cardiff Bay. Cardiff, of course, the only team to beat Guildford in the league this year, and Haringey managed to do the business with a 3-2 win in the Battle of the Capital Cities. Bristol with the win over Lee Valley in North London by 6-2. Oxford then get some points on the board themselves. A massive, of course, given the result for the Solent Devils. The Rising Stars beat the Mustangs at the Oxpence by 5-4. And this is where we get to talk about this upcoming weekend and games on Saturday. Bristol welcomes Streatham over to Cribbs Causeway. Chelmsford to take on Solent, which is a big game with playoff connotations on the line for the Junior Devils. Invicta versus Oxford is a 5:30 p.m. face-off in Kent. And then this is where we have the special announcement. Massive game here in South 2. Guildford versus Haringey at the Spectrum. And it should be said, for the first time ever, there will be commentary at the Guildford Phoenix. And a massive thank you to them, because between myself and the Phoenix, we've worked this out, that we will have live Twitter Spaces commentary from the Spectrum from Saturday night, 5:30 p.m. face-off, at the Spectrum, where yours truly will be commentating on Guildford versus Haringey. Now, a massive thanks to the folk at the Guildford Phoenix, particularly Josh Sherrington and Jill Howgate. We've been knocking this, certainly Josh and I have been knocking this idea around for a while, but it's a massive game. Haringey have quite a big fan base. Not everybody's going to be able to travel. And actually, we're going to give it a go. Lots of teams use Spaces on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it to commentate on games. We're going to give it a go for some South 2 hockey this coming Saturday at the Spectrum. So if you're at a loose end, you're not at a game, like I say, it'll be on Twitter. It will be on the BOTW Twitter account. That's the agreement that we've had with the Phoenix, just to give it a go. But between myself and themselves, I want to try it out. They want to try it out, but we're going to do it on the BOTW account. But that is that is the big official announcement. There will be live commentary from Guildford on Saturday between the Guildford Phoenix and the Haringey Huskies. A massive game with massive title connotations in South 2. So should be absolutely awesome stuff. Really looking forward to it. A big thanks to the Phoenix for being brave enough to try the idea. Let's see how it goes come Saturday. Couple of games though on Sunday as well in South 2. Lee Valley welcome the Cardiff Fire across to the Edney Rink for the first time, and then on the high road, Streatham Blackhawks take on the Basingstoke Buffalo, who will be looking to get back on the horse, having had a little bit of a break from on ice action. All away games left for the Buffalo. They will not be back at home in Basingstoke until the playoffs. As we can see there, then, Guildford and Haringey tied on 34 points with the Phoenix with 2 games in hand. Haringey able to get to a maximum of 38 points. Of course, if Guildford win, that number drops, but it would mean that Guildford would need to do the business when they play Lee Valley the weekend after. Peterborough then in 3rd, followed by Bristol and Basingstoke in 5th. Cardiff and Invicta are locked into the playoffs in 6th and 7th. And there we are, the Solent Junior Devils. 15 points from 20 games, a game in hand, 2 points clear of the Oxford Rising Stars. Harry Clapman's boys are on the verge of the playoffs, and yes, they would be staring down a tie with either Guildford or Haringey. But the playoffs are the playoffs, and you can't knock them if you can't knock it if you don't make it. Oxford then in, as we say, 9th. Chelmsford then we're into the teams in the single figures. Chelmsford in 10th, getting towards the point where they would need a miracle. They're almost mathematically out. Whereas Streatham and Lee Valley, well, they are out because Solent's are on 15, and the maximum those two sides can get is 14. But the big question, of course, who wins the Wooden Spoon in South 2? Will Lee Valley get themselves at the bottom of the table? Devils win in Chelmsford, and we have our 8 South 2 quarter-finalists. Well, there we go. Be pretty awesome. Like I said, I've enjoyed watching the Junior Devils the couple of times I watched them this year. I found them quite entertaining. They're a good side. RIP to Milton Keynes hockey legend Paddy Scott, father of former Lightning player Craig Scott, holds the record for the highest points in a single season with 146 plus 117 for 263 points in 93-94. That's very, very sad news. Sorry to the folk in MK on hearing that news. That's not it's not a great way to press on that one. It's it's not nice when we have the have bits and pieces like that happen. Unfortunately, the finite nature on that front. Either way, we have gone. He says pressing the magic button. There we go. That's bad. It would have helped if I'd actually pressed the button a bit harder on that front. Either way, we've gone through the whole lot. The whole kit and caboodle in the National Ice Hockey Division, the National Division 1, Division 2, North and South, the whole line and lot. So there we are. We've hit actually edging towards 9 o'clock. We've actually, and mostly just because we haven't had quite as much news as we were sort of anticipating in this one. But yeah, there's the big announcement that we are. There's a big announcement. Yeah, commentating on commentary from Guildford on Saturday for that big game in 2 South. Like I say, it's one of those things I'm surprised other teams have not tried more of. And here's the thing: it might not work, and it's a risk. It's a thing to try. But this is the thing: it's worth a go. And ultimately, I think if other teams can see it and other teams can realise it can work, albeit we did see the Telford Tigers too have a go at it, and whoever they got to do it was swearing every couple of words, which probably wasn't the best of ideas, but it functions, and I want to be able to prove that point to other folks it does function, because actually there's plenty of good people who can do that, who could do this, and I think would be very, very good at it in a bunch of places. Lots of non-league football teams use it ultimately, and it can help promote the game. And I think that's a good way. Effectively radio commentary is going to be, it is what it is. But if folk find it and like it, then there's the potential to do some other bits and pieces with it. Nottingham 3-0 up at the end of the second against the Guildford Flames. 0-0 between the Blaze and the Devils at the end of the second in the Skydome. Awesome. Thank you, Andrew, for chucking those in the chat. But either way, we're done. The door is open. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything else anybody wants to kind of chuck into the chat. And we can kind of roll. And let's see, what else we got? He was a lot better on Instagram the next weekend. Yes, I didn't pick that one up on Instagram, but fortunately so, Karen, yes. We'll start getting playoff quarterfinals confirmed this weekend. We'll tweet out from the stats account as and when I can. Bear with, I'm at games both days this weekend. Are you going to MK on Saturday, or are you in Gosport? But yes, should be a fun one. Yeah, so I'll be in Guildford on Saturday, and then we'll do my usual bit on Sunday. Yes, I figured you might be in Gosport. The on that one. But yeah, it's a. Yeah, it would have been a game I would have gone to if I certainly was on my list before things with the before things with the Phoenix started sort of developing a bit. Yes, Oxford versus Solent should be an interesting one. Caps' usual home defeat to Arizona last Sunday feels like we always used to Yotes at home. Yeah, like Arizona have been a really fun side this year. But yeah, it's certainly tons of fun. Apologies, I had a message come through about some other bits and pieces. I'm waiting on some stuff. Like I say, there's a new hockey stories coming, but needs to give someone the right of reply. Yes, we have, of course, we've had the tickets released there. Apologies for the silence there. Like I said, trying to send messages at the same time. That's my own stupid fault. But yeah, the tickets, of course, been released for our Division 1 and Division 2, our grand playoff weekends. The Grand Northern weekend, of course, at Ice Sheffield, and the Grand Southern weekend at Alexandra Palace. Pretty big one. £55 seems to have turned some people off. I don't really know why, Joe, I think. And I'm a bit confused by this one, actually, because 6 games of do or die hockey for £55. It's about £9.20 a game, which actually isn't bad, like ticket price wise, all things considered. Certainly, from some of the conversations I've had, this idea of like the weekend in the same way that the EPL, the EPL, the NIHL weekend of you kind of turning up irrespective, seems to be a bit of an anathema to people. And my personal biasism, the thing that I come from is sometimes the struggle to kind of get its head around that. I can kind of get why some people would not want to watch their own team. Like, I get it, but it's a bit strange one. The one thing I did find interesting was that if you buy multiple tickets for the Southern weekend, you do appear to get a discount on the ticket. Was something that a few people had sort of said to me, that they'd put in and gotten 2 tickets for £90 rather than 110 as it could have been, which I found quite interesting. Of course, the timings are insane. The first semi-final facing off, either 10 or 10:30 in the morning, is going to be a kicker in the teeth. It's almost an incentive not to win your division, to not have to be up at stupid o'clock in the morning to play at 10 o'clock. In terms of Ali Pally, it's everything else around it. Teams that aren't local or aren't there just won't travel. Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I was speaking to. I was speaking to Jill Howgate from the team manager of the Guildford Phoenix in the build up to the weekend. But one of the things they sort of said was, apparently as a club they actually quite like going to Ali Pally. They quite like playing there. But like you say, yeah, it's the faff of getting there. Currently early window discount in the north at actually £45. That's pretty cool. We do like that as well. We like a bit of money off. But I personally don't. Well, maybe this is southern. This is the southerner in me, like looking at the price and just not thinking it's the same thing. But I don't think that it's that bad. Looking forward to being at the rink from 9 a.m. until 11 p.m. on the Saturday. Yeah, that could be fun. I think you'll have to make sure they give you some food tokens or something for that one, Joe. But yeah, I personally don't think the price is as bad as some people seem to think it is. And I venture, like I say, value for money is a personal thing, right? Like, there's no line of what is and isn't, but people will obviously kind of decide depending on how they're feeling of where their own personal line is. But like I say, for me, £55 for 6 games of hockey in the course of a weekend isn't terrible value. But the infrastructure and everything around it needs to be okay. And like, you know, Ali Pali is, you know, at the top of the hill. It can be a bit hard to get to, and that's going to be tough for some. Certainly Sheffield will obviously be better, will be easier in terms of that, and we know what the infrastructure is like around Ice Sheffield. Yes, got an early price ticket for Ali, but £45 Ali per Ali. I think it's a good price and nice rink. True, not a lot around, but is food at the rink. Yeah, and the thing is as well, like the strange thing, of course, that Ali Pali as a venue, like you think about like the bigger venue, of course, like it's used to being able to hold it. But there we go. It was what it was, and on that front, but it is what it is. You can't on that front. £54 for 6 games is fine, but the nearest hotel is 2 miles away, and costs. But there we are. It is on that front. But yeah, should be fun. I'm not certain what I'm doing that weekend. Certainly, I'm not in a position at that front to be able to. I'll probably be at a national division game instead. It should be said on that one, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on that one. Like I said, you know, I sort of my schedule flits around on that front, but yeah, like if there's a potential to get up to Ali Pali, I will certainly have a look at it. But it might be a day thing rather than a 2-day thing for me on that front. But yeah, certainly, you know, questions, comments, keep chucking bits and pieces in, and we will see what happens on that one. But yeah, like I say, certainly Friday's going to be interesting. Swindon and Leeds, always a good quality game. The Cats, of course, catching up with some of their games and bits and pieces that they have, that obviously had to be squeezed in around the fact that they weren't in their rink. But you know, the Wildcats, I think, if they can really, really get into a stride, are going to be a real problem in the playoffs, I think. Sorry, all I was in a chip spice coma. No such thing as a bad chip spice coma, though, Andy, on that front, I think. So definitely don't worry on that front. And that's the joy of YouTube. You can just skip back to the beginning and watch the rest of it on that front. Have a quick squiz as to what's happening in the Elite League. Still, certainly Nottingham and Guildford are back underway, but still in the intermission in Coventry between them and the Devils, 0-0. Not seeing much else. There's definitely been a trade in the NHL. Certainly a few bits and pieces moving around. The Buffalo Sabres trade Casey Middlestat to the Colorado Avalanche for Bo Byram, which is an interesting flip there. And the Philadelphia Flyers have sent Sean Walker and a 5th round pick in 2026 to the Avalanche in exchange for Ryan Johansson and a 2025 first rounder. That's some pretty interesting stuff. The Avalanche making some moves. The Avalanche making some moves in the NHL. DL playoffs facing off before too long should be fun as well. Looking forward to that. Bremerhaven been a big story there on that one. I think one of the smallest budgets in the league, but nicking the regular season title at the death, been pretty impressive stuff. So keep an eye on that. Me and the boys from Macclesfield Hockey Re MK Swindon have to make Coventry this year, otherwise it's a failure. I think Swindon get a mulligan just because of what happened earlier in the season, but I think it'll be. Yeah, I think Swindon will be disappointed if they don't make Coventry this year, given how well they've played at times. Do Sheffields put on their food for lunchtime games as well? They do, yeah, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, the food. That was the big thing that came out of my asking. That came out of my asking of people's favourite rink foods and stuff. Ice Sheffield appears to be the most popular place to eat in the entire country, hockey-wise, at the moment. The hot dogs, the pie and peas, like very, very few other places got mentioned. certainly with not that amount of regularity. A few people chucked in some bits and pieces. I've had a Murrayfield Stovey, and I thought that was pretty awesome. But yeah, a lot of people. Ice Sheffield appears to just be by far and away the best place to eat in British hockey by quite some distance. So yeah, Karen, if the food is on, I think you're going to enjoy yourself this coming weekend. Thoughts on the Anthony Mantha trade? Very strange. I don't think it is. I think Mantha has not been a bust for the Capitals, but the fact they're able to get some sort of return for him, I think has been pretty good. He's definitely not worked out quite as well as I think he could have done. He's had a better year this year, but over the lifetime of that contract. I think it's not worked out as well in that front. So yeah, I don't think it's strange so much as the Caps moving a few assets. Aside from the fact I think the Caps are going to be looking to sell, given their position. Like, I don't think Mantha's worked out as well as he could have done for the organisation. So Vegas is strange. Him going to Vegas I thought was a bit strange, but with Vegas's shenanigans regarding sort of long-term IR, nothing should surprise me really about Vegas anymore. And hey, that guy owns Bournemouth as well now, so that's fun. What we'll say then, last call, just because I'm going to crack on and do some other bits and pieces. Most times when there isn't for the steel dogs, but the bar food is far and above any rink food as well. Yeah, fair play. But yeah, last call. Last bits to chuck in, otherwise we'll start heading towards the exit on that front. Yeah, on that front. But yeah, like I say, I think I'm making the early face-off before the Hull game. I'll be in the away end with Hull. Top on, come say hi. Yeah, definitely go say hello to Andy. See what inappropriate joke he says. But yeah, there's the big thing, folks. Saturday, probably just before 5:30 p.m. on the Banners on the Wall Twitter account, X account, whatever you want to call it, we will have live commentary from the Guildford Phoenix and the Haringey Huskies in the massive, massive game in South 2 this weekend. Like I say, it's going to be an experiment. We're going to give it a go. If it works, great. And if it doesn't, we will never try it again. But I think it's a good way to get some eyes on South 2 hockey, on these two clubs. I think it's going to be pretty awesome. So we'll give that a go. But yeah, there we go. Any more for any more very quickly, otherwise we will dip out, I think. Just giving everybody just a moment because I'm about a minute ahead of the chat, so that's always a fun one on that one. Nothing else there by the look of it. Any more goals in the Elite League? Not by the look of it. No more goals at the moment. Still 0-0 between Coventry and Cardiff and 3-0 between the Panthers and the Flames. Either way, we'll call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the NIHL. Please do, of course, keep following me on my hockey journey across this series in Banners on the Road. It's taken us to Scotland, it's taken us to Germany, and we will keep wandering on our merry way across that one, as well as our Hockey Story series, long-form pieces of content, whether it's written, whether it's audio, visual, all of those bits and pieces there. Do check out our latest piece with Tom Norton of the Peterborough Phantoms. Of course, there's the old back catalogue of the BOTW podcast. There's our tabletop game Dice Hockey. Plenty of stuff to keep you entertained over on the website. And I know I'm shortening the thing. I'm just shortening it this week because I feel like it. But plenty of stuff. Nearly 13 years worth of stuff over on the website. bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall. That's if you like getting things through your Facebook feed. That's the best place to go. Every piece that goes on the website, every new video that goes up, goes its way through the Facebook feed as well. So you'll be able to pick things up that way. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, is @BannersOTW. That's the place where you can find my usual rantings and ramblings, my sort of rolling commentary on ice hockey, as it were, and and that's, like I say, it's just the best place to kind of keep up with stuff. And of course, there's the virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Never going behind a paywall or anything like that. But if you do like what you see, if you enjoy the content, if you want to just put a few quid in the hat just to help keep up with some of the costs that doing these bits and pieces incurs, that'd be massively appreciated. It's buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. And of course, YouTube, everything, all the links you need for us are in the description below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, feed the algorithm hamster, keep him big and fat and healthy, and everything will be hunky dory and okay, and it'll be great. Well, there we are then. Been to a foreign country and back between 2 streams. We've got some fun stuff coming up this weekend. We've got some pieces coming out, lots going on, and there's a lot to be said. You know, there's still a lot to be said and a lot to be done. The season is creeping towards its end. We're into March. Like, the season ends in April. We're getting closer to it, and it's going to be crazy. We've had a lot of fun so far this year, but we ain't done yet. Still a lot of good stuff to come. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then please do wherever you are. Please be safe. As my friend Scotty Watts would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe, and so long till next time. Make sure you join us on the BOTW Twitter at BannersOTW on Saturday, just before 5:30 PM. The Guildford Phoenix and the Haringey Huskies live commentary from yours truly, or wherever you get your